It's a pleasure to talk to you today at TEDxEdges. I'm going to tell you about Portugal's entrepreneurial transition. You may not have been thinking that actually we had a transition here, or we're having a transition, but it is upon us. And first, many times people ask me, why did you come to Portugal? Well, I have to tell you that in 2001, I had an internet company, and in 2001, all of the internet companies with the bubble seemed to close down, and I was looking for the next opportunity. And so I had a trip to India, actually, and I came and I had a stopover in London and Lisbon, and I had friends in London and Lisbon, and I looked for market research was my area, and I looked to join a market research company. And in the largest market research company in the world, the local office here, after 7 days of looking and going around to find a job and to talk about the market, I found the director of the market research company. He told me that he had a job for me, that it was not so much money, but we could get me, I would have a car, and I would be able to come over to Portugal and as an American get a visa, and they would be sponsoring me. So I went back to Houston, I thought about it, where I was living, and I decided what a great adventure to come over to Portugal. So I packed my bags, I sold my car, I put my stuff in storage, and I came over at the end of July. So one thing that we'll also talk about today is about culture. And so I was unaware that the country effectively shuts down. So in the United States, we're always working. So it was hard for me to get an appointment with the head of human resources, who was my direct contact. So I didn't just dilly-dally or go to the beach. I studied intensive Portuguese. I found a place to live, and I finally had my meeting. Well, the first thing that the head of human resources told me was, "I'm sorry, but we don't have a job for you." So this is to talk about a little bit about my background, of course. Now I do several things, working with the Luso-American Foundation. I'm an assistant professor at Católica in Porto, working on entrepreneurship and innovation. But I came through the via of entrepreneurship. So again, today we're going to talk about entrepreneurial transition in Portugal. So we need to define entrepreneurship. And so what happened was, when I came here for that job, I didn't get it, so I opened up my own company. So the first thing that we can say is entrepreneurship happens one of two ways, either through opportunity or through necessity. And so I opened my first company. I grew it to have 5 people working for me in market research here in Lisbon. And I had finally got really interested also in these questions of entrepreneurship, the differences between entrepreneurship in Europe and Portugal and the United States versus the United States. And so I started studying it for my PhD. If we look at entrepreneurship, we can define it as the pursuit of opportunity beyond the resources we currently control. This is the working definition that they use at Harvard Business School, and we'll use that here today. But what about a transition? What is an entrepreneurial transition in Portugal really consist of? Well, it's about you. As was mentioned, it's not about the government. It's not about some external thing. It starts within you. And it's about your organization. We're going to talk about that. And it's about the next generation here in Portugal. So I have this question that I like to ask about if we're looking at transition, what does that mean? Well, if we're looking at how many times the word empreendedorismo, uma boca cheia, of course, but entrepreneurship, all of those good Portuguese classes are coming in useful. But here we can think, how many times was the word empreendedorismo mentioned in articles in Portuguese newspapers and magazines? Well, in 2000, I arrived in 2001, but in 2000, you had 150 mentions of it in the title of a magazine. And as you can see, in 2010, we have close to 10,000. So this is something that is a transition. So this is my first fact. What do we mean by cultural change? What does cultural change entail? Well, if you look at outside investors, those are people who are bringing in capital into this country. One of the things that they say that is least favorable, according to a study by Ernst & Young, is that the entrepreneurial culture needs to change. That this is something that there's great infrastructure, there are great minds in this country, but the attitudes and facilities for entrepreneurship need to change. Many times, if I talk in lectures or have interviews, talk about failure, and failure in the Portuguese context. I ask for you to reflect on your own definition of failure, and what does that mean also in the Portuguese context. But again, start with your own. If we're talking about entrepreneurship, then it's a lot about failure. It's a lot about learning. And so does anyone know the approximate startup survival rates in 1 year? How many companies continue to go? Anyone? Well, that's a little pessimistic. Actually, about 80% survive the first year, but you're going in the right direction. And here in the second year, you have 65% that are surviving. By year 5, you have 40%, and by 10 years, you have 25%. I'm on my fourth entity, my fourth enterprise now as an entrepreneur, and that does not make me a failure. Those entities served me, and this is something that we need to challenge Portuguese culture to take a deeper look at, because failure is a part of entrepreneurship, and it doesn't mean that the individual is a failure. Cultural change takes time, and the question is, where do we start? Well, I have an idea that we're going to be expanding with the American Chamber of Commerce. We're doing a study on intrapreneurship. This is the idea of the intrapreneur. This is according to Pinochet, not the dictator, but the researcher, that intrapreneurship is about dreamers who do. They're about people who take responsibility for creating innovation. You know, creativity is a great idea. Innovation is when it starts to translate into value. And really, innovation happens in so many different places, in processes, in products, in ideas, in ways in which you're reaching customers, in ways in which you're serving customers. So the first thing that needs to change is we need to look at existing companies here in Portugal, and we need to look at intrapreneurship. We need to support that person who's going to take the internal risk and is going to help in moving the company forward in innovation. So if we have entrepreneurship, the definition being the pursuit of opportunity beyond the resources we currently control, again, pursuing that vision, we can say that intrapreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity within the resources you currently control, because it's within the company. And we need to support and foster that, and we're hoping to have some factual data on this and how we can do that. So in the United States, this has come over time, and it starts to become the mainstream. So by 1992, it was in the American Heritage Dictionary. You can see a person with a large corporation, within a large corporation, takes direct responsibility for turning ideas into profitable, finished products through assertive risk-taking and innovation. So the first challenge is to Portuguese organizations. How do you foster entrepreneurship and take that within? Well, and what do we do now is that within Portuguese companies, what we need to do for the future is lay the seeds for the next generation. How are we going to help the little girl in Guarda right now, who's doing her mathematics homework, how are we going to help her to make sure that she can follow her own dreams and create her own company and do her own idea, pursue her own idea? We need to invest in entrepreneurship education. Youth unemployment is an essential question that is facing Europe, and it is an essential question that is facing Portugal. We need to think here, and this is just in 2 years, we have a dramatic increase in youth unemployment rates. We have an increase in the general unemployment rate, but a more dramatic increase in youth unemployment rates. And so we need to help, and I did a study on second-year post-secondary students that are students in universities and polytechnics, and over 67% believe that they, in some time in the future, will want to start or have their own company or do their own initiative. So we owe it to students, and I'm a professor, so we have to do this in the educational system. We have to give them the skills and help them with the mindset. It doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be complicated. We need to do 3 fundamental things. Simplicity is beauty. We need to develop and coordinate a national strategy, and this is something that we've been trying to talk with all of the governments about. We have a new Secretary of State for Entrepreneurship, so we put this challenge at their feet. And we look at an integrated system using public policy, using civil society actors such as the foundations, community organizations, schools, development organizations, associations. We need to be able to develop an integrated strategy, not just by the government, but with all actors. We then need to do research, because you can't manage what you don't measure. So if you're not measuring what are the outputs in entrepreneurship education, how many people are being educated per year, and how are we increasing it, what the quality is like, is it the same sort of things throughout different levels? This is something we need to do. And we need to train teachers and not reinvent the wheel. There are plenty of good practices out in Europe, in the United States, and we want to bring them here to Portugal and make them our own. So again, two simple ideas that I think are worth spreading. That is intrapreneurship in Portuguese firms, enabling the entrepreneur within you, within your organization, and that we focus on education and training, and that we do this. We have a lot to catch up. Portugal was the only country in the 2002 that didn't have one program at primary or secondary school on entrepreneurship education. According to my research, it wasn't until 2005. So we have a lot to catch up. And we need to do this quickly, and we need to do this in an organized way, and with less resources, but doing it smarter. And we need to do that with a strategy, do that with research, and again, helping teachers. That is the fundamental to have the multiplier effect. Thank you very much.